In this second module of the first Coaching Backpack book, I encourage you to wrestle with a few angels and a few demons. The angels that I'll encourage you to wrestle with are your better nature and the fact that you are doing a superb job coaching and helping people, but you just don't know you're doing it. And the demons I will encourage you to wrestle with are just liberate yourself from the idea that coaching is something that other people do, because there are so many of you out there who are so capable and already doing such a great job of coaching, but don't know it. I have met many an academic who have been useless with people, and I have met many an unschooled person who have been wonderful, wise instructors. And so there isn't any kind of linkage between education, certification, qualifications, and the ability to work with people. If you can have certification, education, qualifications, and be good with people, that is a bonus. But it's not always a given that those pieces of paper or those framed certificates is going to truly qualify you to be good at what you do. And with that in mind, I'd like to remind you that the coaching world and the coaching profession, for want of a better word, has no obligation for you to hold a qualification or a certificate. You can start as a coach tomorrow without those things. And this is not a bad thing, because I wonder if you've ever considered how good a coach you are. I wonder if you've ever thought to yourself, yes, I am that guy, I am that gal. I've helped people, I've guided, I've mentored, I've assisted, I've supported. All of these attributes that you bring to your work and your life are superb attributes that you can transfer directly into coaching. And even if you don't want to become a coach with a capital C, at the very least, I would encourage you to look at the skills, the knowledge, and the characteristics of coaching, so that the next time you start doing it, you find yourself doing it, you know that you're doing it. Stick with me for a while and listen to what I've got to say about the Coaching Backpack. Everybody is protected by Consumer Guarantees Acts, Confidentiality and Privacy Acts, and anybody who sets up as a coach or works with other people in education, the knowledge industry, etc., should take it upon themselves to have personal liability insurance. So in short, the checks and balances, the legal protections for the client, and the financial protections that are available to the coach, none of these are reliant on you having a certificate or a qualification. And people out there who tell you that you need a qualification or a certificate in order to function as a coach are not telling you the truth. This doesn't mean that there aren't quality courses out there that can help you and set you on the right path. But my argument is that there are many people who have great potential to become a coach who really don't need or can't afford to spend upwards of $3,000 US in order to find out. So my mission is to be able to open the door to coaching to people in a way that is easy to pay for, easy to read, and which will widen the remit and help people such as you and I. So, that being said, let's get into it a little bit, shall we? In the second part of Module 1, I look into some other areas about coaching and how to set up as a coach. I talk about quite a lot of things, to tell you the truth. I talk about what is PDC, what is personal development coaching, in other words. And I provide a little bit of a breakdown of my own views about personal development coaching. I do think that life coaching has got a bit of a bad rap, or it's developed that. And part of the reason is a lot of the famous and glitzy and high profile life coaches that are out there who have created such a great impression around themselves that it makes Joe Ordinary people such as myself feel like we can never aspire to such giddy heights of achievement. And so it's all right, isn't it, for one very small minority of coaches who have got a global corporation and who have such a wide following. And more kudos to them. I mean, they've built and they've worked and they've developed their skills and they've developed their business. And I don't begrudge that so much. But what I do take issue with is this idea that in order to be part of a life coaching process, in order to engage in personal development, you have to pay for the privilege. It's a little bit like the analogy of, in order to be religious, one has to go to church, which isn't true. Similarly with personal development and coaching, you don't need to go to a huge stadium full of people shouting and bawling. You don't need the feel-good factor. You don't need the rah, rah, rah. It's a very personal pursuit, in my view. I think there's a clue in the term personal development. So having got that off my chest, I think I'll just outline a few ideas about personal development and coaching as I see it. And this information you will find in the module. First of all, as I've already said, it's something that you can take on for yourself. You don't have to become a fully signed up member of the cult if you are interested in your own personal development. There might be a logical progression into getting into coaching or becoming a coach. That's true. But I also think there are a lot of people out there who, throughout their lives, have read widely and have had an active interest in their own personal development, and they haven't felt the need to go and see another coach. And if you don't believe me, just take a look around the nearest bookstore, those that are still open, and you'll find a section which is full of books, very useful books that people have been purchasing and reading in the privacy of their own surroundings. I remember many years ago having guilt about personal development, and so I was working in a place in London in an office, proofreading legal documents, and I heard a book about procrastination. It was called Defeat Procrastination Now, and I used to read it in secret and keep it in a secret place so nobody could see me reading it. And here's the kicker: I never did finish the book. But I have read widely of other things as well. He said, skating quickly back to prove his credentials. I've read widely and I've read many different areas of personal development. I'm a bit of a junkie, to tell you the truth, and it's a bit of a habit, and I've loved it. I've enjoyed it. I've followed Tony Robbins' career with great interest since the 80s. And, if you consider what he's done with his life and what he's done for the lives of others, it's phenomenal, absolutely incredible. And he has moved with the times. He's managed to learn how to scale. He may have started out by doing face-to-face and workshops, radio interviews and selling cassettes out in the back of his car. But now, look at him now. He's a multi-million-dollar global conglomerate. Life coaching has been very good to him. But Tony Robbins is not the sum total of all life coaching. For every Tony Robbins, there are millions, if not billions, of other people out there who are quietly going about their lives, developing themselves, growing, accumulating wisdom, and being the best version of themselves that they can be. There's room in the market for everybody, in my view. So if you're a personal development junkie like myself and you enjoy reading about personal development, it doesn't matter if you don't wish to become a coach. However, I will say that, well, let me put it this way. I would encourage you to consider how the reading that you've done and how the work you've done on yourself has translated into your life, and any help or assistance that you may have given to other people as a result of your learnings. That, in a nutshell, really is what personal development coaching is. I'm a big advocate of the idea of you coach thyself first. I think it's one of the oldest philosophical tenets, isn't it? Know thyself. So by knowing yourself, you can then help other people. You can reflect. You can add value in so many different ways. So personal development coaching isn't just a matter of taking my module, which is a marketing ploy to encourage you to buy into other things. It's not just a case of taking on the module. It is a case of knowing that you are in this for life. It's a journey. You are a seeker. And that's kind of covered in the module. I touch on that. I also talk about something called the GROW approach. If you get into the module where I start talking about goals and goal setting, you will find that I'm not a big fan of goals, not SMART goals anyway. I know the history and I've taught to them and I've covered them in many different environments. However, I did get kind of SMART goaled out at one stage because I was given learning materials or materials for students, which just went on and on and on. And the claims and the aims and the requests and the challenges that the materials were making were unrealistic. And I started to think goal setting is nonsense. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't have goals. And I hope I'm not confusing you by saying this. What I'm saying is that if you have a goal, that's a wonderful thing to have. But the purpose of the goal is to kickstart and start a journey of personal growth. Because if you start the goal by the time you get to what you want, in theory, you should no longer be the same person who set out on the journey. So have a goal by all means, but make it the first step in an interesting journey, a voyage of discovery, not the actual projected end result, because it ain't going to happen like that. So do set out a goal and state to yourself what you want. State to yourself what you want in a general term. You can be specific if you like. That's the G in the GROW process. But the second letter in the GROW process is R, and the R stands for reality. In order to set that goal, in order to get yourself kick-started, you have to have a dose of reality and you have to be able to work out where it is you are now. So wherever you are now, that is your reality. Get in touch with that. And let's face it, the goal that you're setting may be because you desire to get away from the reality you're in now. That's good. It's good that you know what that reality looks like. And it's good that you know what you're trying to move away from. The next part of the GROW acronym is options. When you set yourself the goal and you've checked your reality, part of that process is for you to know what options are available to you. Do you have the option of buying yourself out of the problem? Do you have the option of working yourself out of the problem? Do you have the option of not facing the problem at all and simply hiding under a rock? These are all options. Objectively speaking, they are all equally valuable to you. So weigh the options, because by weighing the options, you're going to be able to see which, subjectively, is the best way forward. And the final letter in the GROW acronym, of course, is W, and that stands for will. Not so much as will you do this, but in terms of how much will do you have to do this. One of the problems I have with goal setting is that I think it is a means to exploit the vulnerable by providing the impression that things are getting done when they aren't. Allow me to explain myself. If you are coaching somebody and they are in a vulnerable state of mind because they've had to take a giant leap of faith and courage in order to take on the guidance that you're providing, The easiest thing in the world is to encourage them to set a goal, a SMART goal, and send them away with a feel-good, warm, fuzzy kind of sense of themselves, so they feel like they're achieving something. But unfortunately, they won't be achieving anything because the circumstances that led them to you are still there, wired in. So then you hazard sending somebody away to fulfill a goal which they have no chance of fulfilling. In short, you can set them up to fail. And because they feel like they're getting somewhere, they feel like they're getting value from the process. And the logical end result of that, in my view, is that the coach could be taking money under false pretenses. So be very careful about how you set goals, the kinds of goals you set, and be prepared to issue disclaimers to people when you put a goal in front of them. Because the second big part of the whole process is accountability. When you set the goal for a person, accountability and the will to be accountable on the part of the client is a big deal. If the client isn't prepared to be accountable, then they're wasting their time and yours. So the final part of the grow process, having the goal, knowing your reality, checking your options, and finally checking in on yourself and making sure that you have the will to do this thing. That is a way to encourage people to be based in some sense of fact, rather than just sallying forth looking for some pie in the sky wish fulfillment. Anyway, I cover that in the module as well. So this is the second long form that I put out about module 1, which is the free module which I put on PayHip. I don't want to turn this into an advertisement for the coaching backpack. In essence, it is. But really, this is a relationship building exercise as much as anything. So what else? We've looked at personal development coaching. I've given you some of my impressions about what personal development and personal development coaching is or is not. I've also talked a little bit about my dislike of goal setting, and I've shared some of the information about the GROW technique with you. As we get towards the back end of the coaching backpack, module 1, you'll also find that I've put in some information about ethics. And I've linked ethics to cash. A lot of people may feel that money and ethics are diametrically opposed to each other, but I don't agree. In fact, I believe that ethics and money are very closely linked, because money is a universal form of currency which can be trusted by everybody that uses it. We're not bartering, we're not using sheep and goats, we're not having to reinvent the wheel when we use money as a form of exchange. And so that raises the question about how much you charge. If I charge $1,000, can I, hand on heart, claim to provide $1,000 worth of value? Yes, I can. However, does it follow that you will want to pay $1,000? So what you have really is you have a balance between the value that you are providing for the service and the amount of money that a person is prepared to pay for the service. Now, not everybody is prepared to pay the same amount. Close to 50% of people, 45% of people will pay according to the lowest price they can. Another 40% of people will pay according to a higher value, a higher tier. And there's a small minority of people who will pay what seems to be ridiculous money. for the same thing. And the reason for that is because the people who are consuming material are consuming it on the basis of the value they get from it. So if I share advice about setting up as a coach to somebody who has the resources and the means to follow the advice and to finance it, to them, paying $1,000 for the information is small potatoes because they know they will get the money back. Whereas if you are somebody who is simply curious and you don't know whether you want to engage in coaching, whether you want to take that pivot or go into that stage of your life, well, for you, paying $1,000 is going to be quite a risk. And with that in mind, I charge low because I'm aiming this particular product at people who are merely curious. And let's face it, there is a market out there for the merely curious. It's in the online courses, it's in the coach universities and all that kind of stuff, and they will charge you big money. But what if you're not sure? What if you don't quite know whether you want to do this thing or not? Are you going to lay out $3,000 for a course which you may never use because you still haven't wired in or decided to yourself or confirmed to yourself that a coaching life is the kind of life you want to get hooked up into? So what I'm saying is that charging money and charging the right amount of money for the value you promote and the value you provide is an ethical duty. There is an argument that you should charge people more because when they're paying attention. Well, that's fine too. There is an argument that if you charge more for the service or the product, then people will get the result because they've invested more heavily. And all of these arguments hold water. But at the end of the day, the ethical thing to do is to charge what you think the product or the service is worth. And now we get to ethics part 2. But you as a coach are not a registered charity. And by that, I mean that you shouldn't be undercharging for the work that you do, because your ethical duty as well is to put food on your table and to keep your lights burning. So now we've got an ethical duty to ourselves, which you have to fulfill, and make sure that the charge out rate is going to enable you to keep doing the good work that you want to do. So ethics and cash are intimately linked in my view. The reason I'm charging so little for the products that I'm presenting is that I'm hoping to sell many of them. If I thought I was only going to sell one, I'd probably charge $20,000 for it. And here's the strange thing. If I had the right outreach, and if I could throw my net out wide enough to enough people in this big old world, there is somebody who would pay $20,000 for it. Isn't that strange? It's just one of those truths of human nature. So going forward in this module, we're looking at ethics. We're looking at the financial implications of setting up as a coach. We're looking at some of the more airy-fairy esoteric ideas, such as the power of journaling, and we're looking at the power of counterfactual reflection, which is a process whereby you relive a pivotal point in your life and then ask yourself questions about the results of that for you, whether they were good results or bad results. So with personal development coaching being a form of self-discovery, a journey, a voyage, call it what you will, I've had some takeaways from the process of putting together the resources. I've discovered that ethics and money can be closely interlinked. I've discovered that you can grow into yourself. I've also discovered that you can teach yourself the skill of listening. A lot of people are accused of not being good listeners, but that's like saying, well, you're not good at the guitar, are you? If listening is a skill, It's something that has to be worked on. Well, I've discovered that about coaching, and I've discovered that as an educator, I wasn't as good of a listener as I thought I was. I've also discovered that in order to be a coach, there's an element of identity shifting that needs to take place. The first identity shift is that you need to realize that you are coaching quite often, but you don't know you are because it's not called that. Because most people think that coaching per se is something that a qualified person with an office does. But actually, we all coach all the time. Anybody that helps others, anybody who's in human resources or who is in teaching or nursing or a health professional, in retail, in sales, parenting, looking after the elderly, support work, coaching runs through all of those processes. It's just not called that. This means by implication that there are literally millions of people like you out there who are coaching on a daily basis, but you're not allowed to call it that because it's a special pursuit that other people do. So there's part of the identity shift that I'm asking you to recognize, is that you don't have to become a coach. You don't have to get the credentials and all that side of things. But if you look at the module, it might be that you can see that there are strengths that you bring to your life and your work which qualify you as a coach. And worst case scenario is that you will go away with a sharper knowledge of how you're acting as a coach and how you're bringing coaching skills into your work and your life. And that's not a bad thing at all, because it means you don't get to hide your light under a bushel. I'm a big advocate for people knowing that they know things. So if you're exposed to the idea that you are coaching and you've been coaching people, then you're more likely to recognize it the next time you do it. And you're more likely to improve at doing it. And that's a good outcome too. So I'm not trying to convert you into becoming a coach. What I'm aiming to do is to encourage you to consider what kind of coach you might be. Whether you're a listener, a strategist, a planner, whether you are a motivator, the list goes on. And of course, the work that you do may reflect the kind of personality you are, and the kind of personality you are may cause you to emerge as a specific kind of coach for a specific kind of client or person. So this is just another takeaway that I've gained from putting this module together. What I've learned from the module is that essentially coaching is going on all around us, under our very noses all the time, and we're just not recognizing it for what it is. And as a consequence of that, there are many people out there who have great potential, incredible knowledge and experience, which they could bring into coaching and help the world and help themselves and help others. And all they need to do is to be able to recognize those skills, that knowledge and those attributes that they're carrying. I strongly encourage you to have a look at the Coaching Backpack. I'm currently sending it out to people with a questionnaire because creating a product is an iterative process. And by that I mean I ask questions and I get feedback from people who might be interested. And their feedback and your feedback will be very valuable to me because it means I will be able to refine that product and to make it more marketable, but also make it useful to more people. So I do hope that you'll have a look at the Coaching Backpack. Click on the PayHip link, which is in the description below. Like and subscribe, etc., etc. Do all of those things. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your responses to the work I've done. Do I need to thin it out? Is it too much? Do I need to add more? I've provided roughly 25, 30 pages of coaching information and then added blank templates that people can photocopy and use for themselves afterwards. So it's a pretty good package, though I say so myself. But I'm really keen to see if other people think the same, because you can spend a lot of time in a garret or in an attic writing a novel only to find out that it's totally divorced from reality when real people get to see it. So I'm looking forward to hearing from real people such as yourself. Feel free to click on the link, have a look, and I look forward to contacting you and communicating with you again in the future. And remember, whatever it is you dare to do or dream, begin it now.